All right, guys, if you'll stand for the bracha. This is fast today. Everybody is their first session. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher Torah.
Amen.
This He gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to His people Israel and to all the peoples through His Son Yeshua the Messiah, Lord.
Amen.
Please be seated. Cheer up, we might actually finish Revelations. I mean, it's been the best 7 years of your life. Okay. So, last week, getting into Revelations 21 and getting all the way down to verse 9, we spoke a lot about the new heaven and the new earth and how that was something that was already understood, something that was already prophesied, that God was going to put this thing in place, and we spoke about the Aleph and Tav and sort of tied that in to who was included and who was not. And the point of it is that there would be victory through Messiah and being established, and there was a certain group of people we end off that was not included. All right, so let's just start off there to remind ourselves. Okay, so remember we spoke about Hoshana Rabbah. He said, to anybody who's thirsty, I myself will give water free of charge from the fountain of life. He who wins victory will receive these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the untrustworthy, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those involved with a cult and with drugs, idol worshippers, and all liars, their destiny is the lake of burning fire with sulfur, the second death. So again, even in the midst of this, as we wind up to the end, he's still issuing warnings for those who are still not in line. Guys, it doesn't say but they're nice people. You can be nice and you can still be a sinner, and you can take your chances without God, and that will not get you in. It will not get you home. Too many of the times we get an emotional response, but I'm a nice person, why would God judge me? He's looking at your fruit, and if your fruit is sin, there's a problem, right? So we have to acknowledge again that he again gives us an opportunity here to see and establish. If it wasn't clear already, if you're falling short, don't think that you can be a believer and get away with stuff like this either. He says it time and time again. Ephesians 5 is a good little note for you to make. When he talks about the greed, idol worshippers, the sexually immoral, those people will not make it to the kingdom. So we have to be cautious. We have to continue to work at our salvation with fear and trembling until the very end. Okay? Verse 9. One of the seven angels, having the 7 bowls full of 7 of the last plagues, approached me and said, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me off into the spirit to the top of a great high mountain, and he showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of the mountain from God. It had the Shekinah of God, so that its brilliance was that of the priceless jewel, like a crystal. Let's pause there. So according to that verse, who is the bride of the Lamb? The city. So the new city of Jerusalem. So where does that leave you, considering you've been reigning for 1,000 years with him? Does that nullify you as the bride?
I don't think so.
I will pause while your brain is glitching. What do you think?
It makes me think of a verse. I can't explain my life to this. That speaks about a person who must Shabbat, it says, I'm making a pillar in my temple. So when a person who becomes one with Yeshua and becomes his bride will be included in the city. And I don't know if he'll be an actual pillar, but I think he will be a very integral part of the city, the temple, and whatever God is doing.
Okay. Any other sort of ideas?
So the people are staying, will be staying in Jerusalem. We will be citizens as such, and then be part of the bride.
You guys agree with us? Have we had any other thing in Revelations at all that talks about a city and a people group and he intertwines it? Didn't Revelations talk about the harlot, which was in a specific city, but he was talking about people, but he was talking about a city? Nachon? So he uses the imagery of this to carry a certain group together. This doesn't nullify the previous promise that the bride of Christ will be with him and reign with him, okay? Or that the bride of Christ is not a people. What this does is he marriages the same image, just like he did, I think it was in Revelation 17 and so on, where he mentioned the city and gave it a certain application. This is the city, it's the harlot. But he was talking about the people as well as the place. Okay? So we've married the imagery together. Where are you going to be when Messiah establishes New Jerusalem, when God is reigning with man, the Shekhinah? Will the bride be separate from his dwelling, or will it be with him? With him. Ladies, do you generally move into the house when you get married? I hope so. No? No, everybody's quiet. It's not a trick question. Most of you I saw. We helped carry things. You moved in. Right? And you coming to the place where he's saying, my Shekhinah will be there. And remember, that means to dwell with. He's telling you a beautiful truth. That home, coming to my Father's house, there are many rooms. This is descending in a sense, and it's coming to dwell in the place where he said, my presence will be there forever. Your room has just migrated. Let's put this plainly. You were in heaven for a while, according to the text, and when everything gets established, you get your new body. Those in Christ are resurrected first, and now it's a case of, but we were in heaven and now we're not. Were you made to go back to heaven, or was heaven or your place, or place of God, or his throne in a sense, descending down? Right, God always comes down to man. We see it at Sinai, we see it in Garden of Eden, we see him coming to dwell with man. This is the whole point of the covenant relationship. So when you read this, don't get confused. He's simply saying our home will be together and it will be the New Jerusalem. With me? Okay. It had great high wall and 12 gates. And let's think 12 represents who? The tribes, okay? We started with a story. We're going to finish with that narrative, like we said, from the beginning of Revelations. And the gates were 12 angels, and inscribed on the gates were the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, just in case you didn't get it. There were 3 gates to the east, 3 gates to the north, 3 gates to the south, 3 gates to the west. Why does he mention the east first? When you guys talk about compass points, don't you start north, south, east, west? So why do you east, north? Why? Tell me. Garden of Eden, right? Remember that when they kicked out, where was the angel put so we wouldn't be able to get back in? At the east gate. So what is he trying to tell you? I am now taking away, look at the angels sitting at the gates. You are no longer to be separated, but it's a reminder of you coming into the presence of God. Number one. Number two, where else do we see angels separating God's presence and man? Don't tell me heaven. The tabernacle, right? You see the cherubim embroidered on the curtains itself. To come into the presence, there's normally an angelic host. So he's giving you a copy of what was in heaven on earth. Here he's mixing the two. We see a merger of that which is from heaven, that which is from earth comes into its rightful place between the two. God's plan and purpose coming to the fullness thereof. The wall of the city was built on 12 foundation stones, and on these were the 12 names of the 12 emissaries of the Lamb. All right, why is that important? They're going to judge that. What verse are you reading from? Somewhere in the... fastest fingers first. Find a verse that says that the disciples will judge the tribes of Israel. I gave you like a clue from the beginning already. You guys should have had that verse open. Where does it promise that? Remember what God said has to be fulfilled. Every verse has to. So where do we see that? Oh, slow Wi-Fi. I'll enjoy my coffee. Just trying to help it along. Anybody? This is the interactive class. What does it say? Matthew 19, verse 28.
I assure you that when the raised, you and the Son of Man suffers also be operating.
Right. Okay. So when the world is making new, do we see that this promise is being fulfilled at that very point? Right. So again, something that Christ promised while he was on earth, he has authority to establish it, and it's the foundation of which Jerusalem is built. Remember, the cornerstone, in a sense, is that big thing that defines the shape of the temple. The foundations determine what you can put on it. And the foundations is a testimony. Further prophecies that are coming are being established now. It's the testimony. You with me? So he's establishing this in picture and in point. The angel speaking with me had a gold measuring rod, which he was to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. The city laid out in a square. Its length was equal to its width. With his rod by it measured at 1,500 miles, with length, width, and height the same. All right, so for us who don't do the calculations of miles all that well, I think it was 2,200 and something. You guys, yeah, I need to stop writing like this. Crazy person. Yeah, miles to kilometers. One 1,500 miles. 2,203. Okay, maybe not. Do it 414. Over 2,000 kilometers square plus high. Let's think about that for a second. Where is 2,000 kilometers away from here? Is it? Cape Town's closer. 1,200 kilometers from here. Add another 800 kilometers, where do you end up? Probably in the ocean. So if you had to start the other way around, if you had to go from Cape Town and you did 2,200 or 2,400 kilometers up, one city, I don't know, play with the numbers, but you definitely, it's going to be probably bigger than South Africa, don't you think? Never mind the different layers of that equaled in height. All right? What he does is he's not trying to tell you anything else. He's trying to tell you something. Why would it be in why would it be in that sort of cube shape? Remember, we're thinking of imagery. Why? Holy of holies. Who said that? No, that's right. It's the Holy of Holies. Very good, Bruce. Fantastic. What we see is the Holy of Holies, depending on who you talk to, they'll either say 15 cubits by 15 cubits and 15 cubits square, or they will say 10 by 10 by 10. Either way, it's a perfect cube. He's talking about the Holy of Holies. And he's saying that which where God dwells is now on earth. Follows a pattern. You with me? Okay? human standards of measurement, which the angel was using. The wall was made of diamond and the city of pure gold, resembling pure glass. The foundations of the city were decorated with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was a stone of diamond, the second sapphire, the third, that one's going to be a funny word to pronounce. Anybody want to take a gander at that? Eh? After sapphire.
So from here to Tanzania, you're looking at, so Zambia is 2402 kilometers direct, straight from Kingston.
Right, so from Cape Town you end up in Zambia. It's a small little city for you to stay in. Yeah, a straight line, right? So I think this is a little bit difficult for us to comprehend, I think. The whole Middle Eastern region type of scenario, it's massive.
Well, it's halfway to Cairo. Because Cairo is 4,200 kilometers.
All right, so yeah.
So it's halfway up to the real top of the continent.
Okay. So we get to the foundations as diamond, sapphire, chalcedony, I don't know if that's right, emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth cornelian, the seventh chrysolite, and the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th turquoise, and the 12th amethyst. And let's pause there. All right, now I'm not going to say, okay, I am going to say, why those specific type of stones? I have an issue with these stones. Partly, but he wants to tell you something, something else. It's not just about the 12. It's not just about the color. Right. It's called isotropic or anisotropic type stones. Now, what do we know about this? Everything comes back to a rainbow, peeps. When pure light hits a certain type of stone, and remember, God is light, it's either going to make it dark or it's going to reflect it perfectly. And there's only certain types of stones that do this. Okay? So when it hits it, pure light, God dwelling, it's diamond, it turns charcoal sort of color. Attractive look, yes or no? Probably not. What we do have is when it hits, please check me, the anisotropic one actually reflects it to the point where it gives us anisotropic will give us a rainbow reflection and the isotropic will go dark. The issue we have is that certain stones today, when you do the study in antiquity, certain people call different stones different things. And we kind of get lost in translation because this word doesn't exactly work out. That God brought rainbow at the place of light and it's probably going to be reflective. Okay? So it's probably more likely a set of anisotropic stones, which will leave this interpretation probably to be a little bit flawed. Don't get hung up too much on the detail. All you want to know is pure light hits reflective stone, makes pretty colors. God's trying to remind you of what? Why is Noah have anything to do with this? Why? Look at the pretty stones. Why would he want to remind us about this?
Yes, so he said that for me, like when you mentioned the covenant of peace, he said that this is like the most flooding, because I'm hearing about the flooding of them, and never unanimously to that extent again. So I think as Paul also she mentioned creation, and then also that this is now forever, that this is how it will be forever.
Okay. Johnny?
Is it not to remind us about, because we're speaking about the New Jerusalem and God running, so it's about his dominion, it's about about him establishing us as the living stones, as one Peter 2 speaks about in his kingdom.
How do you get from Noah to dominion? Help me understand.
So in the garden, he wanted to dwell with us, and it was about dominion. But then he needed to reestablish the earth after it flooded. So he was reestablishing a dominion, reestablishing a relationship with us. Now it's about him dwelling.
Close. What other little tools can you use, Paul?
The covenant he made with Noah wasn't with the people, it was with the whole creation. And it looks like he's coming to say that he's making the earth new and making, sort of renewing everything.
Partly.
The whole creation.
Think carefully of the birds. Noah sent out two birds. One was a? One was a raven, one was a dove. Why would a dove be sent out, and where did the dove end up relaxing? Where do we find doves? Can't move. Huh? Where do we find doves? Normally on the floor, walking on the ground. That's how I knew, right? They walk on earth. What does the dove symbolize in your head? Something hovered over the waters like a dove? Right, the ruach, right? So it wants to dwell on the earth. Okay, yes, recreation, but God and the earth, his creation, will go together. He's reminding me of the time of judgment. The judgment has passed. The rainbow came after. Okay, so here he's saying, okay, this is a time of recreation. This is a time of establishing a covenant of peace. This is a time where God will dwell on earth in peace. And he shows it in a very interesting way, bringing us back to the reflection of certain stones. Okay? Verse 21. 12 pearls, and each gate made of a single pearl. The city's main street was of pure gold, transparent as glass. Why would he use a pearl and glass in this narrative? A pearl, sorry, not glass, pearl and gold. Why would he use that? I want rabbi quotes. All right, so from Matthew, what did Matthew tell us?
I have a thought that's from Matthew 13 when he's talking about the kingdom parables. So the poor of great price, but the lost.
Where did he hide it? What happened to it? I don't remember. Someone open up a Bible and tell me what happened. I don't know what you're talking about. I love it when we get to do interactive homework studies. You guys should be chasing these remedies.
Okay, so it's from Matthew 13. I'm reading from, I'll read from verse 44 to in context. So it says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it.
The kingdom of heaven being established. The kingdom of heaven being established on earth. At what cost? At a great price. What great price? Crucifixion. Now the question is, if the price has been paid, are you going to grab it, or are you going to hold on to it and understand it's going to be established? This isn't just about beauty. He's trying to show you something. Where do we normally find pearls? Right, in the ocean. Something shallow, something deep. Something deep. And then do you know where is it? Just floating around on the bottom? It's in a clam. And how do we know a clam has got a pearl? You open it. Let's get less complicated here, right? Well, you weren't expecting that. So when we get to the place, here's the picture. This is something that you have to search. Something that's time consuming, something that is hidden to the naked eye until you see it and you hold it. The kingdom of heaven is something that seemingly is not tangible at this point, but later it will be. And how many people would sell all that they had just to enter through the pearly gate? This isn't some weird fence, this is an ancient city. Just like in Jerusalem, you walk through these gates. At what cost? Why did he use gold? Why not silver, being a place of redemption? Righteousness. Only righteousness and God dwell together in the fullness. He is pure righteousness. And what are we? It says it was as transparent as glass. Isn't that what your translation says? Pure gold, transparent as glass at the end of verse 21. So it's clear. Let's see some piece of gold that is so pure and so clear that you can see through it. What type of righteousness is this? You still don't understand? The streets. What do you do in the street? You walk it. When I say, how's your walk? What am I saying? How's your halakha? How's your relationship? How are you living out this discipleship thing? If you're walking in these streets, what are you saying? Walking in the fullness of his righteousness, walking in a pure and clear, righteous manner is something amazing. I saw no temple in the city, for Adonai, the God of heaven's armies, is its temple. What was the point of the Mishkan? The Mishkan was to tell you that this is where God is. The point of the other articles so that you can eventually understand how to come into his presence. At what cost? Confess your sin. Deal with your sin. Wash yourself. Eat of the bread of life. Be anointed and set apart, receiving the spirits of God. Isaiah 11. Walk in intercession so that you can walk and peek behind the curtain past the angelic host to sit in the throne room of the King. Now, when he's down on earth, that's exactly what you can do. It's exactly what took you to get you into his presence. This is why you don't really need the building. The place in itself, the cube, tells you it's part of that Holy of Holies idea. You don't need all the outer barriers anymore. Sin's been taken care of. You've been washed clean. You've been anointed. You've been interceded to behalf. You've eaten the bread of life. So what's left? Sit at your feet. The city has no need for the sun or the moon to shine on it because God's Shekhinah gives it light and its lamp is the Lamb. Let's think about this practically. Without sun, do we live? No, we need it for warmth, for light, for seasons. We need it. When God's there, are we going to have deathly cold winters that people die of frostbite? Something to ponder. Let me leave that there for you. But the very presence of him, if we look at the sun and the moon and the stars to help us understand, what? The Moedim, the times and the seasons that we're coming into. Why? Because he wants us to keep coming in relationship. It's about us coming up to him. If we continue in that cycle, if we're there already, what's the point? Things have been accomplished. That's a good point. If you think depending on translation. That lamp that is the lamb going, Bruce is taking it back to Genesis 15. When Abraham went in and he made an offering, remember he slit the animals from tail to snout, and a great dread fell upon him and he fell asleep, and there were two lights that went through. Right? One was God, a symbol of God, and the other lesser light was a symbol of Messiah, telling us that he would pay the price for our sin. The light and the lamp. What was the cost to get you here? Verse 24, the nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. Its gates will never close, they stay open all day, because night will not exist there. And the honor and splendor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure may enter it, nor anyone who does shameful things or lies. The only one who may enter are those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Why is there no longer darkness? And what has that got to do with city gates?
Back to creation, it was so much good.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the light of God, who gave the light to everything. So you won't need anything.
Right. To help us understand that parallel, there was darkness and then there was light, and then there was darkness and that was the first day. Okay? So when God came, there was no life, and then he brought forth life. Okay? And if I was dealing with the city gate, what is the city gate designed to do? Okay, elders, and let's get other. Right. You bought them to keep bad things out and nice people inside. Okay? This is a place where people would run in if they needed to. They would be able to bolt the doors. And when you think of a gate, how many of you know what a Solomonic Gate would look like? Right? Okay, let me draw a picture. When we look at a gate, you think of the gate you've got at home. It was a little bit more complex. What you have is we have chambers. Okay? So this area here is where you would come in, and that would actually have probably a wooden gate. You break through that in these chambers. Think about it. You walk in, all of a sudden it opens up into a room, people go left and right, and then they get funneled back into the next little section to come in. And then it opens up and you think you're in. No, you're into the next chamber. Some instances, not only does it funnel you, number one, number two, they would have a second layer, and from there I can just stab you because it's very difficult for you to fight up and very easy for me to stab down. Okay? So is this an offensive or a defensive structure?
If this was the New Jerusalem gates,
If the New Jerusalem gates were designed for protection, he definitely wouldn't make them 12 gates of pearl. Because pearl is a very, very fragile thing. I know I've got lots of pearls, and you can't even clean them with anything because they just break and crack and tarnish very easily. So he's making the gates out of something so fragile, which is pearl, but they're beautiful, okay? I mean, the streets are pure gold. Gold is the softest metal. I'm thinking running in the streets, and the streets are getting scratched and everything. It's not like he made it out of iron and steel because he wanted everything to be a strong fortress. I think it looks like he's going for beauty there, not protection.
It's very much no longer a need for defense. You're safe. You're fine. Right? When do people normally break into your house? Okay, don't think it's South African mentality. That really doesn't make a difference. Normally at night time, right? You put watchmen on the walls to watch. Most of the time when they have to be more alert is at night. Okay? God's saying it's going to be all right. I want you quickly to jump to Isaiah 60. And I just want you to look at the beginning of this verse. says, arise and shine, Jerusalem, for your light has come. The glory, that can be translated, remember, glory and Shekhinah go hand in hand, of Adonai has risen over you. For although darkness covers the earth and thick darkness peoples, on you Adonai will rise, over you will be seen his glory. Nations will go toward your light and kings towards your shining splendor. Right? So here we're dealing with something that is, when Messiah is, it is a time of light, but there is darkness all outside of it. This is a point where darkness is being completely expelled. So we have, again, a narrative that kind of leads us to help us understand that this is exactly what Abba wants. You guys all okay up until here? How much time do we have? 15 minutes. All right. Let's go into Revelations 22. I want you to put in your notes, Revelations 22 is an epilogue. It is a summation of everything you've read. Okay, so don't think about this as now again, okay, what comes up after this. This is about just a little summary in a sense. And of the Lamb, where do we see water coming again from a previous prophecy? We spoke about it last week. In Ezekiel, it comes from the throne room. It says, remember, water is life. It says, between the main street and the river was the tree of life producing 12 kinds of fruit. Different kind every month. And the leaves of the trees were healing for the nations. All right, so here we have, you have won the right to do what? Eat of the fruit. The angels are no longer blocking it anymore. What is the point? It's eternity. Okay, does that mean, who is the tree in our understanding? Messiah. So this is something not necessary for you to live forever. In this case, it's a reminder of the promise from the very beginning. All right? No longer will there be any curses. The throne of God and the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will worship him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. Yeah, remember that imagery when the scribe went again, I think it was in Ezekiel, where he wrote the name of God as a protective seal over them? Same thing, it continues in imagery throughout Revelation. Night will no longer exist, so they will need neither the light of the lamp nor the light of the sun, because Adonai, God, will shine upon them, and they will reign as kings forever and ever. Then he said to me, these words are true and trustworthy. Adonai, God of spirits of the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants the things that must happen soon. So what is he saying? The prophets and every prophecy we have that talks about end times, millennial things, line up with what he's saying now. God has told you this for thousands of years. It's true. Look, I'm coming very soon. Blessed is the person who obeys the words of this prophecy written in the book. Again, you are blessed if you obey, if you listen, if you read, if you're focused on studying Revelations. Then I, Yochanan, on hearing and seeing these things, when I heard and saw them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel, showing them to me. But he said to me, don't do that. I'm only a fellow servant with you and your brothers, the prophets, and the people who obey the words in the book, worship God. Right? And we spoke about that before. The only seeming angel that received worship that we can see in the text was who? Right? The one that Joshua had an encounter with before Jericho. He was never rebuked. He said, I am the chief of God's armies. It's our belief that that was no angel, that was Messiah. Then he said to me, don't seal up the words of the prophecy in this book, because the time of their fulfillment is near. Now that should ring through to something. He says, don't seal it. That's an opposite instruction of something we've had before. Any takers? Right. At the end of Daniel 12, he tells him to seal it up because the time is not yet. Here he's saying what needed to be fulfilled has been fulfilled. Everything now points to this moment. Whoever keeps acting wickedly, let him keep on going acting wickedly. Whoever is filthy, let him go on being made filthy. Also, whoever is righteous, let him go on do what is righteous. And whoever is holy, let him go on being made holy. It's a really random statement. Why would he say that? How many of you have realized when you've spoken to people, people are going to do what people want to do? If you want an excuse to go and sin, you will do it. Doesn't matter how many times I quote Revelations. If you're looking for an opportunity to turn and act righteously, you're going to keep on doing it. He's trying to show you heart condition of certain things, okay? It says, pay attention, says Yeshua, I am coming soon, and my rewards are with me to give to each person according to what he has done. Rewards according to what he has done. Do you have any other translation there? Right, so faith, by grace through faith you are saved. Obedience is a relationship condition, but at the same time, great is the one in the kingdom of heaven who teaches others to obey. Matthew 28, in your going, make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything that I have given you, and surely I will be with you to the end of the age. Exodus 19, I've lifted you up on wings of eagles and brought you unto myself, and if you choose to do what? Then you will become a peculiar treasure. Obedience is key. Don't think that your belief alone, faith without works is dead. Does James not tell you that? What he's saying is, if you really believe, act like it. And in that comes your reward. It's not about head knowledge, it's about relationship. It's about heart condition that's going to make you change. The point of the Holy Spirit is to make you change. The point is to get you to walk with God in obedience. I am the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now, up comes a very controversial verse in Messianic circles. How blessed are those who wash their robes so that they have the right to eat from the tree of life and go through the gates into the city. Other translations will say, blessed are those who do the commandments. Okay, we have two different texts. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Which do you think more fits the consistency from your theology? Which one do you think is right? Blessed is he who obeys the commandments, or blessed is he who washes their robes? Which one is it? How many of you believe it's commandments? Stick up your hand. Right, here's the funny thing, you're wrong. The most ancient text that we have says, wash your robes. No, what is he trying to say? Being blameless, being covered. Does that mean you don't keep the commandments? No, he just told you obedience above that. But the washing of the robes is the more accurate translation. Right? It's easy for me to point at a mistranslation and make you believe it. It sounds right. But obedience has already been dealt with. He says, how blessed are those who wash their robes so that they have the right to eat from the tree of life and go into the gates of the city. Are you covered by Messiah's blood? Yes or no? then obedience is natural.
So doesn't it really follow then, the act of washing your robes continually covers being obedient to the command. That is one of the aspects of it.
One of. But if we make it just about obedience to commandments, it makes it sound like a works-based salvation. You understand it?
Yeah.
If you keep on doing the commandments, you'll be saved. That's not what your Bible teaches. You keep the commandments out of love for your King. You obey because you love him. It's about relationship. You understand it, or you read it, you understand it, you do it. This is the heart condition shift that needs to happen. But you're saved by grace through faith. Obedience is natural. Now listen carefully. Outside are the homosexuals, those involved with the occult and with drugs, the sexually immoral, murderers, idol worshippers, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. These are not my words, these are his. You cannot, and you cannot have God on your own terms. We spoke about this in the first session. He's God, you're not. You cannot say, I'm going to do things my way because of, and ignore verses like that. Too many churches are bending God's instruction. I'm not even going to say bending Torah. This is a revelation study. And saying it's okay. Judaism is having a similar issue. Right. That dog is actually a reference to a male prostitute. Okay? Let me find that verse. Go to, let's just go and check this. Oh, sorry, not a male prostitute, a homosexual. Hang on. But in verse 18. Okay, I was right, I suppose. Deuteronomy 23, verses 18 to 19. No woman of Israel is to engage in ritual prostitution, and no man of Israel is to engage in ritual homosexual prostitution. Okay? Look at, let's read 19. Nothing earned through heterosexual or homosexual prostitution is to be brought into the house of Adonai, your God, in fulfillment of any vow, for both of these are abhorrent to Adonai, your God. And it becomes that expression. See what your Deuteronomy 23 has? Normal translation? Engages in what? Look at the context of the verse. You understand where we get it from, why the translation is it is here? They've taken Deuteronomy, a harlot. How does a doggy practice harlotry? It's not talking about the animal, it's talking about the person. Okay, so it's an idiomatic expression. Yes, I know. And you carry that from Torah across to here. You guys see it? You understand why the translator used this, not to get confused? Very quiet right now. Click, click. Okay. Says, I, Yeshua, have sent an angel to give you this testimony for the churches or the Yahan Messianic communities. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright morning star. Okay, bright morning star, where do we get that from? We've got 2 more minutes, guys. We're like 4 verses. Sure your Bibles work? Right, our first reference, Numbers 24. Balaam actually gives us a prophecy. Now, that should make most of us. only in this instance. Right? Remember the lady that was following Paul, as it was Paul and Silas, and she had what the Bible calls a snake spirit. And she was proclaiming exactly what they were there to do. These are messengers of the Most High. They're here to tell you how to get saved. She was saying everything right. And yet we know that it was demonic. Even the demons understand truth. When they saw Messiah, what did they say? You are the Son of God. And he told them to be quiet. All right? So you can get that narrative. Okay? So, what did Balaam say about the morning star?
Reading from verse 17, I see him, but not now. Behold him, but not here. A star shall come out of Jacob, and the scepter shall rise out of Israel, and battle will go out of Moab, and destroy the sons of Solomon.
Right. So here we see a prophecy there fulfilled. I've mentioned before, do we have another prophecy about a morning star referring to our Satan? You do? Fastest fingers first. Isaiah 14, verse 12. Someone read Isaiah 14, verse 12. We're nearly finished, guys. If you're there first, Shani, read.
Okay. How you are, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how you are cut down to the ground, you are wicked nations.
Okay, so this is one of those similar little image problems like Gog and Magog. We look at two very different descriptions. One applies to Messiah, the other one applies to Satan. Isaiah 4 is talking about a certain king that went wrong, and then it starts to talk about him. Balaam is talking about how beautiful it is, so Jacob, and this is what he sees coming. Someone with a scepter, someone that is a star, someone that is, and we see it tying in here again. All right? Sorry, let me just find my verse. Verse 17. The Spirit and the bride say, come. Let anyone who hears say, come. And let anyone who is thirsty come. Let anyone who wishes take the water of life free of charge. I warn everyone, I warn everyone hearing the words of this prophecy in this book, that if anyone adds to them, God will add to him the plagues written in this book. It's an interesting analogy, right? If you misrepresent Revelations, you will suffer the plagues, i.e. tribulation. And if anyone takes anything away from these words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away his share from the tree of life. You will not be included. And the holy city as described in this book. The one who is testifying to these things says, yes, I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Lord Yeshua. May the grace of Lord Yeshua be with you all. Isn't that a really weird way to end? If you add to, take away from, you get tribulation, you don't get into eternity. Or you don't get into eternity. What would it mean you would get the plagues of these that were written in this book? Would we have any other real interpretation here? One block of hell fall on your head. Maybe you will suffer famine. Maybe we can take one plague and prescribe it and say that was bad enough, but it says plagues. So as a punishment for misrepresenting Revelations, you go through tribulation. Apparently that's what it says here. Now that's again something that's going to mess with your theology. Not my words. Here. Okay? He promises blessing, and he also promises encouragement. What does the heart of a believer say? Bo. If we wanted to take it into the Greek and the Latin, it would be Maranatha. Come. We are calling out for him to come. How many of you would rather have him sitting on the throne and have less issues about discussing 50 million different topics? You could just go to him and go, what's right? Me, I would like that very much. Make my job a lot easier. And I know he'll always be right. The simple end of Revelations is this: keep your eyes fixed up. He's coming soon. Now, I know this was written 2,000 years ago, but what's the point? You know, I sent out a little message, and I said, eyes up, family. We get so fixated on our walk, we get so fixated on our stuff, we forget to focus on God. Some of you needed to hear that. I definitely needed to type it. There's a lot of things in your life that will take your focus off, and a lot of that is you. We need to go back and we need to focus on him, specifically coming into the season that we're in to celebrate this feast. Get ready. Check your chametz. Check your issues. Check your heart condition. Let this not just be a time of cleaning out. Let this be a time of spiritual renewal. We get so stuck on the physical that we forget there's a spiritual lesson. And we forget to rejoice because he is the reason for the season. You with me? All right. Shall we? Let me do the run-in, and then if you have questions, we can go from there, okay? I'm thinking. יברך יהובה וישמרך, יאר יהובה פניו אליך ויחנך, יישא יהובה פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In Jesus' name. Amen. You may be seated. If you want to be seated, you may run away if you want to run away.